Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome. For some of you, it's early morning still. Some it's moving into the evening, and for others, it's late. So welcome from wherever you are, and it's great to see Portugal, Rome, Italy, Yorkshire, all these different places on the globe, and that's going to become very, very relevant as we speak and engage today.
Hello, Monique from South Africa. Very happy to have you with us.
And Carrie from Portland. Great. Terrific. Yeah, Portland where it's early.
Still waiting a couple of minutes to give some people time to still drop in.
Yeah, so feel free to announce your name and where you're from. Oaxaca, Mexico. Great.
Welcome. San Francisco. Great.
Berlin, Boulder. Great.
Ashok from Mumbai.
Yeah.
That's late. Thank you very much for being with us.
North Sea.
The North Sea in Germany. Whitstable, the UK, also North Sea, but the British coast.
Mm-hmm.
Norway, also North Sea, but the Norway coast.
Mm-hmm.
Another one from Norway, Irving. Nice to have you here. And as people are announcing themselves, hello Nicole from Frankfurt, that's where we are. It's just the village around the corner. So we have people from South Africa and in India and people just around the village corner here in Frankfurt where we are. It's kind of what the internet does. I find it pretty amazing. And this people are announcing themselves. I also would encourage you to just have a look at the screen and look at the faces that you see there. Because one of the basic exercises that we would like to share with you is to go beyond the screen hypnosis. Because when we are with our computer, usually we have certain habits. Our computer is something that we usually have in our private room or in our office room, and we are just there where we are in our private space. And when we see the screen, we are in our private space. Maybe we are watching YouTube videos or something on Facebook. But what we are doing right now is something different. Yes, it is the internet. Yes, it is Zoom. It is technology. But we are real people. We are real. Somehow, virtual reality is a misnomer for this because I can ensure you I'm not virtual, I'm real. And I'm pretty sure you are not virtual, you're real. And there's something about appreciating that we are all real. And this is a real space that we are sharing here together. And it makes a difference to be aware of that we are real.
But that's a lot of what we're going to talk about for during this session. But just look at the faces. I don't know if you can see, there are arrows on the side of your screen. You can flip and see we have over 90 people on right now. And they all can't be held in one screen. So if you flip on or click on the side of your screen, you'll be able to pass through and see the different faces that are here, realizing that each person is sitting in a different place on this beautiful planet.
So we are connecting people here, but we are also connecting places. We are people and we are places. everyone is somewhere, and these places are connected in this virtual space that we are sharing here.
And we're cultures.
And we're cultures. We are also connecting cultures here. And just being conscious of that does also something to this space that we are sharing here. And to start with, we would like to start with some basics about technology. And one basic thing, and if you're very familiar with Zoom, please bear with us. This is something that we particularly also would like to share with people who are not so familiar with Zoom yet.
And I guess we should say, I'm Elizabeth Diebold, and I really give you a warm, warm welcome into this space of togetherness that we're in and going to be deepening.
And my name is Thomas Steininger, and we are both sitting here in Frankfurt, Germany, in a little village on the outskirts of Frankfurt. And we are very happy to have you with us and to be with you in this space for the next 3 hours or so.
So you wanted to talk about a few technical aspects, technical and consciousness aspects at the same time.
One thing I want to show you right now is a different possibility to see each other. And if you pay attention, right now you will have just Elizabeth and myself on your screen big. And I will cancel this again. This is something that only the facilitator can do. But on the right upper corner, you have a button, and this button has two options. One option is called Speaker View, and the other option is called Gallery View. With the Gallery View, you see the group, at least a screen full of our group, not the whole group, because that would be too small of images, but a part of the group, and you can scroll through the different screens. We highly recommend to most of the time use the gallery view. So if you click on the upper right and look there, you will see, you click on the gallery view, you see the group. The reason why we want to do that is because we want to talk about the shared space that we try to create with each other. And it's just very helpful to see the shared space, to be aware of that.
It also, when you see all of us together, it disrupts a bit the habit of watching something. Now it's easy if there's also a drawback in seeing these small squares that it's like, so it doesn't matter what I do, but you're part of a whole here. And many people are observing and connecting to and peering into this whole that we're forming and that we're a part of. But when you see just the speakers on the screen, one tends to move into audience mode. Here's the talker. I'm listening, and for what it is that we're trying to bring to life here, that ends up being a detriment that takes something away from the experience. So we're going to be pointing to a lot of distinctions in consciousness, distinctions in awareness that are critical in making this online space come alive. So one of them is that, think about how is it that you relate to seeing speakers and having speakers speak at you versus realizing that you're part of this quilt that we're creating together from places all over the world.
And then there's another little technical thing I want to show you, or allow you to hear. You will hear right now. So here, I've unmuted all of you.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Nice to see each other.
Yeah, right.
Hello.
And maybe we can also enjoy this for the moment. Just hello.
Just like 5-year-olds.
Exactly. Most of the time, I will, and I do this right now, mute you all again. But the way I mute you is that you have the option on your own side to unmute yourself. And my request to you is to, of course, whenever you speak, please unmute yourself. And when you don't speak, please mute yourself. So this way we don't have background noises that usually we are not aware of, but everyone else can hear. And this helps us quite a bit to have a smooth understanding of the language and the sounds here. So on the lower left corner, you find a symbol of a microphone. It's called the mute button in the English interface. And when you click on it, you can mute yourself or unmute yourself and vice versa. Next to it, you find the symbol of a camera. And for those of you who are familiar with Zoom, there's nothing new to it, but for those who are not, here you can choose to be on camera or off camera. And sometimes, it took me, in fact, quite some years to find out that it's quite often quite nice to be off camera, because when we talk, particularly in smaller groups, when the windows are bigger, it's quite strange to look into your mirror all the time.
Oh, you're talking about the hide self view.
Oh, sorry, I may mix up.
Yeah.
If you could continue.
So being on and off camera, and actually just from that control there, the on and off, when you're off, you basically will see your name or whatever icon you have for yourself in Zoom. But and that can be if you're going to be disturbed, your kids run in and you need to take care of them or something, it's great to go off camera. But generally, we want to see each other. We want to be with each other. But Thomas was starting to refer to another function that is actually really important, particularly for facilitators in this kind of space. In your own window, where your face is, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, there's a little blue thing that when you move your cursor up there, there's a little blue control thing. And if you click that, you get a number of options. And one of them is hide self-view. Hide self-view is a wonderful thing, because one of the things that we need to get beyond in as facilitators or as people who are leading programs or working in close connection with other human beings in this kind of space, which is what we're needing to do at this point in time. When you constantly, as Thomas was about to say, have a mirror up to yourself, it's very difficult to connect with other people. So that's a very handy tool to just turn off your camera. We had one woman in our last session say that sometimes she feels that she's not there and likes to see herself. That's great. But if it makes you self-conscious and distracts you, as it does with for most of us, I think, then keep it off. And I think, is there anything else there that is useful to look at?
I think it's good for the moment.
Yeah, and then there's also the chat, which you've been using to introduce yourself and where you're from. And yeah, I think that's pretty
Maybe
much.
One word to the chat. It's a great item to use the chat. It's also good to not overuse the chat, because sometimes you create a distraction with a dual stream, so that people are not aware, should I read the chat or should I listen to the conversation? So to be aware, chat is great, but there's also an overuse possibility of the chat where it creates more distraction than connection.
Yeah. And particularly if you're trying to create connection with people in this context, having a whole other thing that's going on and on and on and on next, in the midst of it, makes it very, very difficult to tune into the subtle dimension of which is the way that we are connecting here. And I just want to say, I think we've already really started to assume that this little mini course is is something that we decided to do, as we said on the website, because we realized that so many of us who have been doing deep work with human beings, who have been counselors, coaches, running workshops, working with organizations, all of a sudden had the rug pulled out from under them with the social distancing. How do you do counseling work? How do you do very intimate work with human beings, establish connection between human beings when you're forced to be in a virtual context? And that I think has been painful to a lot of people, and confusing, and also scary, because it's like, this is what I know, this is how I live, and now I'm not sure how to do that in this new environment. So because we have a lot of experience starting with working on phones in international contexts, bringing people together, we thought we wanted to give this as a gift to the community, our brethren and sistren, who are co-explorers of the deeper realms of human experience. And our program starts with these first 2 sessions, which we're calling Module 1, which is on consciousness. Because this, for those of us who are working with human beings in a deep way, consciousness in relation to the online virtual experience is very important. In fact, it's the most important thing. And if we will give a lot of tips and so forth, and speak through how to design programs, but you need to know what you're designing for. What the kind of experience is that you're aiming to create. Some of that will be individual depending on your context. If you're doing a one-on-one session with someone, that's different than doing a large group like this, for example. If you're doing psychotherapy with someone, that's different from doing a social entrepreneurship, co-creative design. I can't remember the term right now, but one of those design things that you do for 3 days and everybody's brainstorming. They're very different contexts, but the thing that what we would like to do is to point your attention to the more subtle dimension of our being together online that can aid you in creating connections, co-creating, and doing your work at a very deep level, and doing it online. So these first 2 sessions, this first session will focus on developing your capacity for presence, which I'm sure many of you have developed over the years, developing the capacity for presence and being aware of the presence between us. And tomorrow we will focus more on the collective, on how to work with that. And then the last 2 days we will talk about how do you design programs for presence, and how do you design programs for a process, whatever process that is that you're working with.
And with the presence, we also would like to start with the first exercise. And there's a little feature in Zoom that we started to appreciate very much. You can create breakout groups. In particular, in a huge group like this one, we are 100 people here together. There's a danger that when we are just in the big room, that we come in a kind of a spectator consciousness, and we kind of lean back, and some people right now, Elizabeth and myself, are talking, and you're basically watching it like a Netflix channel or something like that. And there's a way to kind of counteract this position of the spectator, and this is to come together in small groups and to be put in an environment where you're with one and other. Right now we would like to make an exercise where you mostly will be with the second one,
So there'll be two together.
two together. And what we would like you to do first is just for a couple of minutes to be with each other.
No talking.
No talking. Just to be with the other and appreciate on each other's presence. That can be very heartfelt, powerful, can be sometimes a little intimidating because all of a sudden you're in an kind of intimate situation. In fact, it is an intimate situation if it is on screen. But the good thing is also you don't have to say anything. You just can look and appreciate that human connection is possible this way. And this is much more obvious in a one-on-one situation than in a situation of hundreds all together. And that's part of why we would start with this kind of exercise.
And it's in meeting each other, meet being to being. Seek each other, seek eye contact. Seek the other's presence. Offer your own presence. And presence meaning I am here. I am. And in that presence is not a mental thing. It's not an idea. It's not it's not an objectification. It's a giving of your being, opening your being to be with another. And I'm sure this is something that you practice in close encounters with other human beings, but it becomes even more important here on screen with each other. So we'll break into pairs, and it may take a little bit. You will see a pop-up window will come and it will say join breakout room number data. Hit the yes button, and you will magically be brought into pairs. And again, what we would like you to do is to just be with each other, meet each other without speaking. And then at a certain point, we will send you a message, and you'll see it on your screen, and tell you to introduce yourselves. So at that moment, then introduce yourself, who you are, where you're from, and why you're here.
So this is our first exercise. Enjoy.
Okay. Before we open up and speak about what your experience was there, we'd like to set some context. And one is the reality of the moment that we're living in. This coronavirus crisis that actually has thrown all of us into the unknown. We're living in a time where what is actually going on is not clear. There are lots of people who are frantically trying to. Oh, the sound is really crackly. Is the sound crackly? Okay. It's different from right before. Strange. Okay, hang on just a sec. We'll see what we can do.
Elizabeth and Thomas, it's just cracking when you speak. Otherwise, it's not cracking.
Perfect.
Yeah, but before when they spoke, it wasn't cracky. It just is after we got back to the main room.
Okay, how's this? How are we doing? No, not good.
It's only your microphone, I think. So it might be a little funny thing with your microphone.
Okay. Is this better?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it was just the connection became a little loose. These are things you have to deal with on the fly when you're when you're doing this. But thank you. So what I wanted to point to was that we're in a very unique situation, and a situation that is frightening and unknown, and but also has incredible potential for transformation. Because as we know, as practitioners of working with human beings at a deep level, it's when we give up our identification and our rigid grasping onto who we think we are and what we think is possible and what reality is, that it makes it very difficult to change. You need a little room in the system in order for there to be space for transformation. And so at this point, when we come together in the reality that we're in, which is always the case, which is what most spiritual teachings will tell you, we don't know what will happen. And in that not knowing of what will happen, there is interest, curiosity, maybe a little anxiety, but an enormous amount of possibility. And that's part of the reason why we felt it was important to do a program like this, is to be able to open up that potential between us. Because in this space, this virtual space, our intention, our awareness, are actually what structures the space that we're in. Do you want to pick up from there?
This is basically what is different between a physical space and this space. And what we would like to start this course with today is just as we would like to help you to facilitate these spaces, to be aware that the most important ingredients to hold an online gathering is your own awareness for the space itself, your own capacity to be in this relational space that we are holding. And one thing that's usually mostly in the way is exactly the same thing that is connecting us. It's technology. Because we are here, we are in front of a computer. Every single one is in front of a computer. We see the screen, and we are used to being with a computer, but we are not used to be beyond the computer, to be aware that, yes, this is the internet, yes, this is Zoom, yes, this is technology, but here we are, human beings. There is a possibility to make technology secondary. And the way to make it secondary is to make our awareness of each other primary. That's part of why we did this exercise before, to really connect and see. And I'm sure the experience was quite a tangible one. When you're with one other, you're very aware of being with each other. And to cultivate this awareness is the most important ingredients that a facilitator can bring, because you are inviting people to a space, and you only can invite people to a shared space if you are aware of this shared space. Because one thing that you're usually not thinking about is that when we have physical meetings at a certain place. In a certain place, we usually choose carefully a beautiful room, possible in the beautiful house, and if it's a weekend gathering, maybe in a beautiful spot in the countryside. All this the room, the setting in the room, the house, the place, maybe next to a lake, maybe in a forest, whatever we can do, is meant to hold something. We choose this carefully because a place is holding our meeting. That's why we choose beautiful places if we can, or if we are just in a house, we choose a beautiful room and make a beautiful setting. We make the room tidy. We have flowers in the room because the room is holding us. An online gathering is different because there's no physical room. There's no physical space. This space, even much more than a physical gathering, is held by intention and consciousness. To the degree that we are entering this space together and aware of this space, that, hey, here we are. I see Sue, I see Domingo, I see Diana, I see Merilana, I see Susan. We see each other smile, and we are aware. I see Martina smile, and we are aware that we are in each other's presence. We can cultivate this awareness. And to the degree that we cultivate this awareness and invite people into this awareness, the space opens up. So the most important thing that we can bring to online gatherings is our own awareness of this subtle space, because it's a subtle domain. It's not held by any physicality. It's only held by consciousness and intention. And our strength to bring that and invite to that sets the foundation to make a gathering and a live gathering.
And it also allows us to become aware of something that most of us know, maybe from our meditation practice or in different consciousness pursuits that we're part of, that we are not separate at a deep level. That the thing that we are becoming aware of in a space like this is the fact that we are together in something, that it takes my attention, it takes my presence giving to it, but that there is something that we can experience that is subtle, that is beyond me, and that's between and through us. And this truth is often much harder to feel when we're actually together, or when we're in our usual ways of working, because we've been so trained to cultivate our own awareness of ourselves, what's going on with us, what our feelings are at the moment, what's happening with us at the moment. And we often are cultivating that with others, that the presence of the other, the presence of one's own inner story, the physical presence of being with someone, and the touch of another is all very vivid. It's very it forms the fabric of our relationships. But in this space, we don't have that. And what becomes revealed is that we are together anyway, but in a deeper level, at a level of presence, which is what we're calling it, consciousness, awareness. And that it's not just something that while as a facilitator, it's something that you open up for others to enter and to be with, to be together in. It's not. It's something that we as a group also that exists in between us as human beings. And I'm sure I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear what your experience was meeting another in this space. Did you feel the other? Was there a sense of presence with the other human being that you encountered here in this little exercise that we did? It's cultivating that capacity to sense aliveness, to sense the presence of another, the presence of awareness, mutual awareness, that becomes the foundation for dealing with depth in this online space. Yes, please. Someone wanted to speak?
Yes, may I?
Yes.
Yeah, I've unmuted myself. Is that all right?
Yes, please.
Mhm.
Yeah, thank you. I found it incredibly moving. I did go onto that website this morning, so I had a few ideas of what would happen. And I was with, may I mention her name? May I mention the person's name? Nikki?
Sure.
I found it was wonderful to be in the presence of an amazingly sensitive, fragile human being like me, equally as fragile. And to be actually aware of that thin veil, but also the connection, that web that connects us all. So you're beyond any pretense, you're beyond any mask, the coronavirus masks or any other sort of masks that we put on. And I found that incredibly enriching. It's a gift. Somebody gives you the gift of their presence. And what can be more fruitful than that? It was beautiful. Thank you.
And it's amazing that in this virtual space that this presence becomes highlighted.
Oh.
The truth of this presence becomes highlighted. And that's a very powerful thing. We just had a question come up in the chat box about the recording. The recording will be sent to all participants. And that's what use will be made of it. If you don't want to be in the recording, you can turn your camera off and not be here present. Although I think that will affect your participation in the event. But many people are saying that they're not going to be able to make all sessions, and they would like to have a recording.
And that's the only use of this recording, nothing else.
So thank you for asking. And sorry we forgot to mention it. Thank you. Also, if you want to speak, you can just unmute yourself, but there's also a capacity to raise hands. If you go to manage participants at the bottom of your toolbar in the center, there you can see your name and then hit you have an option that says more, I think. And if you want to raise your hand, you click there. Is that right? I think that's.
Just lost it.
I think it's a little different for the host than for all of us participants.
Excuse
No,
me.
it says reactions. It's a button which says reactions.
Oh, not reactions. That's not what we're looking for.
I
I
think
think
what
that's
you do is you click on participants down below,
Yes.
and it opens up the list of participants. Then on the bottom it says raise hand, yes, no, go slower. Is that right?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Mhm.
And if you hit the little raise hand, the little blue raise hand at the bottom, it
Yeah,
raises
and then
your
you see
hand.
it like.
And then if you hit it again, it puts your hand down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you so much.
Great. Thanks, Fumi. Great to see you.
Oh, yeah.
Did you want to say something, or are you experimenting with raising hands and showing?
Well, I
them?
was raising my hand. So, well, I'll share a little bit about my experience one-to-one.
Great.
While I'm here. So yeah, I had this lovely Violetta from Moldova. So at the end I found out, and that was very thrilling to meet somebody from a country I've never been to. But during the silence, I was connecting, and then I was, looking at her face first, and then I thought, oh, I wonder who she is, where she's from, what she's like. So I went into her being, wanting to explore her being more and more, and not just what she looked like. And that was really, really a sweet experience. And then I closed my eyes and I could still feel her presence. So that was another level that I went further into, but also I found how distracted I can get. You know, with all the present day watching and videos and whatever we do online, I found that my attention span is getting shorter, and how, you know, I'd like to work on that and my focus and keep the focus as long as I can. I think that takes training and really, like you said, you know, the awareness and the presence that we need to cultivate more, especially now, you know, going, yes, connecting in the wider technological world with all of this distraction, but also to be able to come in and rein it and be present. So that was a really good experience for me. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Fumi. I think it does take practice. It's like meditation practice. Or as Thomas often likes to use the analogy of learning how to drive a car, you know, where at first it's like, don't talk to me. I can't, I don't know where the gears are. I don't know how to drive this thing, but that over time it becomes seamless. So in some ways what we're hoping is that through familiarity we can drop the technology and really be present to each other more and more.
In fact, that is really something to take a moment to contemplate, that we are having a very new tool to connect. This was not available to us 5 years ago in this way. We as humanity are in the process of learning how to do this. And part of learning how to do this is also how to forget the technology. Like when you drive a car, the mastery of driving a car is that you basically forget the car. You forget the gears, you forget basically you're in the car and you're moving somewhere. The car becomes secondary. It becomes something that is just part of you wanting to move. Or maybe an even better analogy is when you learn to play music. First you have a violin or a piano. It's intimidating and you're completely occupied with the instrument you have, and you basically, your consciousness is all about the instrument and how to do this and the techniques and what to do, and it doesn't sound right. It can be very nerve-wracking. But particularly when you are getting good in this, and it can be a music instrument, it can be some kind of sports, playing tennis, playing soccer, or whatever. Mastery starts when you forget about the techniques, when you forget about the violin, when you forget about the piano, when the music comes, when you forget about the soccer ball, you just play, you're in the movement, you're with the team, you're in the wave of this. We all together are in the process of learning a new possibility of mastery to come together online. And for that, similar like forgetting the car, forgetting mastering the violin, forgetting mastering the piano or whatever, we have to go through a process of learning in order to just allow that something opens up between us. It's space of connectedness. And part of what we try to share with you is when you start to facilitate, this is something that you can bring to the people you're working with, that you're communicating with. The invitation to use this technology but not get lost in technology, to in the end up in the human space where we are together. And when that happens, you're in a different order of online communication.
And communication, period, I think, because of this more subtle dimension that is what the connection here is about. And I'd like to also think about the development of literacy, of reading, that when language became written and stories became written, it's like when your kids just first start learning how to read, and you hear they can barely make sense out of what they're sounding out, because they're occupied, their consciousness is occupied with what the sounds are and so forth. When human beings first learned how to read, they read out loud because they could not process it in the mind. And part of what we're learning here is this is a new technology. Oh, but before I say that, the thing that's interesting is that now when we read books, those of us who are here, you get a sense of the consciousness of the person comes through. You feel them. You feel their attitude towards life. You feel the depth of their experience. So all these awkward sounds and letters and sounds that we master in our lifetime, and that humanity has mastered over a few thousand years, has now gotten warmed up with human consciousness. And it's the same with these pixels that are representing us, that actually behind them is a human presence, a human intelligence, a human heart, human care. We're just at the beginning of learning how to enliven and awaken to this living potential that we can tap into when we pay deep attention, open attention, attention with our whole being, not just with our mind. And maybe we should go to some of the other comments. Deanna, you have your hand up. Do you still want to say something?
If you unmute yourself, yes.
Thank you so. Yes, thank you so much for this opportunity. My partner Colin and I are joining everyone today from Kenora, Ontario, in Canada, and
Great.
I wanted to say how much I appreciated the opportunity to be with Susan, just be with her, rather than say anything. I felt quite quickly an affection for her, a caring for her, and that only increased. I felt a privilege of knowing her. And when she finally spoke, it's as if we had known each other for quite some time, and I was finding out new things about her. And it was very intimate and very, I was surprised by the degree of caring I had for her, and a true affection. So thank you for that opportunity and the opportunity to greet Susan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. Beautiful. Yeah, Colin.
If I may,
Sure.
Colin, I'd like to express my appreciation to everybody who's present on this course, and particularly Elizabeth and Thomas. Thank you so much for offering this. This is so important as we learn first to be present and then learn to share presence and then recognize ever presence, and that it's always there whenever we can drop in and let go of our conditioning long enough to just be. And to do that together is the opening, or a key opening gift to the larger opening that this coronavirus is presenting. And so just the fact that you're doing this now, this is so beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And I think that's actually a really beautiful point, Colin, and one that becomes apparent in this space, it's so interesting how many of us, when we were first exploring the teachings of interconnection or interdependence, or not two is one, or whatever deeper spiritual truth that we were exploring, would have thought that coming online virtually might be a way of accelerating the real-time experience of that between people, but it is. And that's, I find, I mean, that gives me goosebumps. It's an extraordinary thing. And then bringing that subtle awareness, then bringing it back into our are in real life, real time, face to face, engagement accelerates again a kind of development and depth between us. So it's it seems to be the right technology and the right awareness for the right time.
Maybe M. Sulaski, you also raised your hand if you still want to talk. You can unmute your microphone.
Don't know who that is.
And
no, thank you.
Oh, great.
oh, here you
there
are.
You go.
What's your name?
Oh, my name is Margaret.
Hey, Margaret.
Hello.
Margaret, great
Yes.
to meet you.
Oh, well, yes, I had turned down the hands up, but I thought I turned it off. So I'm learning. That's a new.
No problem.
All good.
Right.
All good.
Well, I met with Josephine and felt now it's almost like, well, there's a new friend. The connection was strong. So I think that's all I'll say, to just appreciate this opportunity. I'm glad you're doing this.
Thank you. Thank you, Margaret. But I think that what you just said is very profound. It's like you met a new friend and the connection was strong. It's like we are online. And we come here because we all want to learn something. We all want to find out how can we connect more deeply. And through this medium, we can. Through this not knowing that we're bringing, this wanting to know, this curiosity that isn't an intellectual curiosity, but is a whole being curiosity in this time with this technology, creates an opening where the truth that we are connected becomes highlighted. And I find that quite amazing.
Susan, you just raised your hand. You want to talk?
I did. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. I'm the Susan that Deanna and Cullen met. And this is my first experience with this. And it was quite stunning, really, to just kind of sit here and observe them. And I was creating a sort of a picture of who they were and what they did. And they're both sitting comfortably and easily on the couch. And I thought, I bet they're therapists. I bet they work together and they just do co-therapy. And we smiled and then we just sort of looked at each other, and it just such an amazingly different experience to be doing this. Anyway, when we introduced each other, it turned out, yes, they run a retreat center together and have been doing that for years, 20 years, I think they said. So, so thank you for this experience. Thank you for doing this, for being so generous with the world. And I think this is a real gift, and certainly I'm here to maybe help with a program that we do in Minnesota of Aging with Gusto, and trying to learn some ways to transition from in-person to maybe doing things online. So enough said, but thank you very much. It's really, really a gift to us.
Thank you, Susan. I would like to make a distinction that facilitating groups like this is very important to be aware of, because there is a certain connection that can be make one-on-one, and there's a certain presence that we have in the group space, and it's not the same. they're connected, but there's something where it differs very much in the size of the group. This is a very large group. It's 100 people. So there are advantages and disadvantages of big groups, and there are advantages and disadvantages of small groups. What I would like to bring our attention in when we facilitate a group like this, to be aware of each other and to be aware of the space between us as a whole. Because to create this interconnectedness between us, one way how to do this is to start weaving a wholeness of consciousness that we hold together, that holds our personal relationship as far as we have them or as far as we develop them, but it holds also the space that we are all together in. And caring for the space that we are all together in, is this fragmenting? Is it staying together? Is it something that has energy or has no energy? Is something that to learn to respond to makes a big difference in the way how we can facilitate online meetings like this.
Mm. And it takes practice, because one can, which is why we started with one-on-one.
Mm-hmm.
One-on-one, it's like right immediately there. But here, and I think there's also something else that becomes more palpable when you hold the group and you realize that Margaret is no, Susan is from Minnesota.
Right.
that Deanna and Cullen are in Ontario.
Mm-hmm.
Joseph is in the Netherlands. Clarine, I think, is here in Germany. That we're all coming from different places on this earth, and we're forming a consciousness web where we each are a kind of node in this web, but our feet are all on the same earth. And having our feet on the same earth and being in these different places and realizing, as I look in and look at all of us, that somehow we are all present in the same place at the same time also, which is actually something that seems kind of impossible, but is what is the experience here, that we are all together and we are thousands of kilometers apart, and we are on this same earth.
And relating to what you are saying right now, I would like to make a claim, and it's maybe a surprising claim, because we're talking about virtual reality, that what we're doing is an exercise in embodiment. That how we're relating is not separate from our embodiment on earth, and it's very different than our usual way how we have embodied encounters. And it's very much related to what Elizabeth was just bringing in, the very fact that we are here from different countries, from India, from the US, from Europe, from South Africa. And if we let that touch us, the embodiment also of the earth between us becomes part of our awareness. We are consciousness points, a network of consciousness points around this globe. And the network of conversation that we're having right now is a network around the embodied earth. I will never forget the first time I had an online conversation with someone from Tasmania. Tasmania is the island south of Australia. I didn't even know it exists. And it was also someone who comes from an indigenous tradition of Tasmania and is very connected to the earth there. And all of a sudden, and ever since, I have a relationship to Tasmania, to this spot on earth. I maybe will never go there. Most likely I will never go to Tasmania. But having a relationship with this woman I was talking to I started to have relationship to parts of the world I will never visit physically. And it's something that's not just having in my head. It's not just a mental idea of das war. There's a living, heartfelt relationship via the person, via the woman I was speaking to. And it happened with people in South America, with people in Australia, with people in the Philippines, with people in Colombia, with people in Alaska, with people in Norway, with Berlin, Russia, and to see that there's a living web of relatedness that we are weaving, and it's not a mental thing. At least, if I may say so, my experience, it is a cellular experience to be with you. To see your faces, to see you looking, you see your responses. It's not just that my mind kind of recognizes that you are there and that you're human. There is a full-bodied recognition, a heartful recognition that we are in each other's presence. And on one hand, it's easy on a computer to forget about all that, to basically objectify each other. But when we learn to move beyond this threshold and start to experience each other in spite of that we just have the screen in front of us and the screen being between us, but the screen also being a bridge to each other, there's something emerging that is very profound and a very profound human experience. The reason why I'm bringing this is because on one hand, it's just an experience that I find very powerful to experience because it's a new way of being together as humans. And second, because I find this is something to bring to each other when we are facilitating meetings, changes the meetings. It makes meeting alive, human. And this is the most thing we want to share with you, that these meetings don't have to be technological. It can be a deep, human, embodied, cellular, heartfelt experience of the shared space that we are sharing.
I wonder if we should take a...
Yes.
Ashok, do you still have a question or want to make a comment?
This is David.
I'm sorry.
Ashok. Ashok.
Yeah. Hi.
Sorry.
So I just wanted to share how I felt during the one-on-one. So the reason I actually was excited to be on this session was because when we tried doing an event, which we usually do on a one-on-one basis and everyone comes together, we were forced to do that event in an online virtual world, considering all that is going on. And I was very skeptical of doing it that way because it loses that essence I felt, the sense of being in the presence of each other, being together. But anyhow, we did that event, and I felt that, okay, in the virtual space, the online space can give that kind of intimacy, can give that kind of experience for everyone to come together. And hence, to learn more about how to experience that, I came to this session. And while we were doing a one-on-one, I just went back to the time when we actually did sensing presence in the physical world, and how it was for me at that time and how it was for me when I was doing it online. The funny thing happened was I was confused because when there's a physical being in front of me, I could somehow be okay with just looking, being silent, and not saying a word, just feeling the presence. But in the virtual world, I felt confused as to where should I look. Should I look into the camera? Should I look at the screen where the person, the partner is? What would they be thinking? Where am I looking? And all those questions were popping up. So yeah, that's something very much alive for me from the one-on-ones.
This is also a question about cultural habits and cultural contexts. That there are quite a few cultures where direct eye contact is not something that one does except with people who one is very, very close to, and maybe not even then. So, you know, seeing somebody that you don't know and having that person in front of you, it's like, do I dare look at them, or is that an invasion of their privacy? And I think that's why also when you're facilitating something like this, that for within your context, knowing where those points are is really important in order to create an experience that is right for the group of people that you're working with.
Yeah. David, you also wanted to speak.
Yes, a mundane question and then a reflection. If I remove my picture from myself, does it take it away from the group?
No.
No.
Okay, thank you.
That's the wonder of it.
Yeah.
That's the help. You're
Yeah.
still there, but
Yeah.
your mirror of yourself is not there.
You're not removing yourself, you're removing the mirror in front of you.
Well, interestingly, the group that got called out was with a good friend right here in my hometown. So I'll say something about something else. I lead two Lectio Divina groups that were groups where we met face to face, and now we've moved to Zoom to continue. And some of the people have said to me, David, it's kind of strange, but I feel a little bit closer to the folks when we're in the Zoom. I wonder if it has something to do with we're just present with our face. Yeah. We don't see anything else in the room, not distracted by people walking down the hall or anything. But it was interesting observation that they said, I just feel a little more intimacy when we're together on Zoom, and you might reflect on that.
It's interesting that you're saying that, because I hear this from different places. I even hear from teachers, because there are people who teach on Zoom now because of the social distancing. And they experience that it's sometimes easier to connect with the students in this face-to-face online form. And there's something, I mean, that there are many things one could say about it. One is because it's not used, our usual habits of distractions are not there. So there is a heightened sense of attention just because it's new. If we don't feel distracted by technology, we also have a kind of an awakeness to the situations that if we just do the usual thing, we come to a meeting and we know what this meeting is and we know how we are. There are a lot of habits that basically are making us not awake. And being in this new medium also allows us to be with a new awakeness with each other. And this is one thing. And the other thing you already touched on, because there are many things that are kind of distracting in a usual environment. And here we are kind of in a reduced way of being together. And this reduction can be also a focus of attention. So I hear quite often also that people have the same experience that you're referring to, that is sometimes an intimacy that is surprisingly more than they're used to.
Thank you.
And I think also, I mean, we kind of mentioned this with the hide self view, that there's that often when one is first on camera or first that one feels very self-conscious or very, very self-conscious in a way that is not an open awareness, but really a self-focus. And I think this relating in this way and being able to open a space for others to enter this context together requires requires that you let a lot drop. And I think Doreen really mentioned that to start with, that you're actually yourself very present, and that is the invitation to others to meet in presence. And all the things that we practice about being transparent, and transparent, I don't mean sharing simply what emotions and thoughts and so forth are going on within oneself, but being open, is being open and being touchable. When one is touchable, one can then also touch others at a soul level, at a deeper level. And I think that, as Thomas was saying, the newness of this often brings a kind of innocence to our engagement. And so that the people that we know very, very well, something new can even flourish there, which is a very positive thing. But to keep that innocence, to keep that openness is part of the practice, but it's part of any consciousness practice, that to be able to be in that space.
Thank you.
Sophia, you also raised your hand.
Yes, thank you very much, and for everything, and to everybody. Lots of things. The experience of the breakout room, I realized quite quickly that the lady I was sharing with, who is a new friend also, was on a train. And then I realized that she had the curtain down, but just behind I could see trees passing, and I'm on a street where there's no trees, and I want to see the trees was what I experienced. So eventually, after my presencing with her, where I was very curious as to who is this being, and my curiosity led me then to content, but context was moving around her and she wasn't moving. We were sharing an experience. And then I'm a shiatsu practitioner, so I'm very somatic and embodied for in a lot of my coaching and how I do things. So there was this awareness growing that my focus wanted to be on this being, but in what context and where. And then I got even more curious as to where was I? Where was I being guided to? So, and within that, then I had to ask, where are we? Where are we moving? Because I could feel the movement through my body of these trees. And I have a picture looking back behind me of Salvador Dali, and she was also going backwards. So we had this meeting that was so tangible of, and then what emerged was the unity and the connectedness and the interconnectedness of the coincidental meeting of so much mutuality. It was astounding.
Thank you, Sophia. I would like to ask you how this experience that you are sharing compares to the experience that you have right now with having so many faces looking at you.
That's a really interesting question, because this is one of the first times that I've been able to share in a Zoom session in a big room. I'm looking at you, I'm aware of people, but everything that you're saying about being aware of the space between us, it's tangible. It's in my very small space. It's like this double, almost like an experience of the other. Of different levels of my attention and my awareness, but through the body, which doesn't usually happen to me, because if I put my hand up in Zoom, there's a yikes. With the awareness of eyes, I'm a teacher also, so having that people look, and the expectation is, but what you're doing and modeling is beautiful. In that I'm very present to the quality and the qualities that you're embodying and transmitting and generating for all of us. I'm really, really grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophia.
Thank you, Sophia. The reason why I asked you the question, and really thank you for the way you responded to it, because when you were referring to this one-on-one meeting that you had. You were referring to the moving train, you were referring to the curtain, you were referring to the background. And something similar is happening right here, only that it's not just coming from one place, but it's coming from many places at once. And no mind can grasp that. But the people from different countries, it's too much for our mind to hold what is, but there is an intuitive relationship, and I think you were referring to the wholeness of it.
Yes. Yeah.
And this
without definition either. When I allow the experience to happen to my whole being, my mind doesn't have to define it.
Yes.
Because it's just what it is. And when I allowed that, there was something else present in both of us, that it was almost like a pop.
Yes.
Something emerged. It went into sort of, and then another of realizations, and then language kind of trailed behind the awareness of something as well.
No, also thank you for that, because there's also a relationship between this experience and the language that we are using. Because the language in any kind of human encounter, but particularly in this one, because this is so much held by language. Because we are in so different places, and there's just a screen. A big part what we are weaving together is woven together through the language that we're expressing and what the language is addressing. So if our language goes to kind of a mental reality, basically what opens up is a mental reality. But if the language is connected to the shared experience that you are addressing, the shared experience that is before and beyond the mental becomes addressed by the language that we are using. So the awareness and the careful use of language to talk to this awareness allows to weave an intensification of this shared space that we are working together with. And in any kind of online gathering, in any different context, and there are people here, I'm sure they use this for work context, the people use this for therapy context, people use it for spiritual context, and many other contexts. So there are specific right ways how to hold the context, because a work context you have to hold in a certain way and with a certain language. A spiritual context you have to hold in a certain way with a certain language. And when you're attentive to what the space is that you're in and how to serve this space and use the language and do this together, then the space becomes heightened to our shared practice of the space.
Can I, and I just share, I had a conversation with some people, and also with on the Presencing Institute, the Gaia Journey that Otto Scharmer is doing. And I had a conversation and was reminded of David Abrams.
Oh, yes.
He says that this, when we're talking about language and the nature of experience, and what I've sensed in me has been emerging recently, but that when David Abrams says in The Spell of the Sensuous that I could think, Sophia thinks that she sees a tree, but in fact, what's also happening, and maybe is what's really happening, is the tree says, "Hi, Sophia," in a way that it's a nature experience, and one that isn't defined by language, and a return to my own wholeness then as that experience.
I mean, bringing David Abrams is bringing a master of language in this, and I think to a big degree of the skills that we are learning here is also to use language in a certain way to weave this space between us. And it is it's different than writing a book or giving a speech, but it is a certain dialogical art that we are learning in holding this kind of space.
Well, Sophia, I'm fascinated. This is Sam here. Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Sure, Sam, yes.
I like how Sophia says in relation to the tree about sensing what is emerging. And this whole space is sort of a new one for me to navigate. And I showed up late today. And so I guess that you guys have done already a one-on-one exercise in Zoom with another person and have done some exercises. And I'm sort of familiar with that, but being blind, it's almost as if I have to expand my awareness to incorporate much more of what I need to sense, like to just tell what's going on with people, even down to I can't tell whether you're attentive to me or not, because I can't see the expression on your face, which you people have access to. But it's interesting that listening to how people talk, say with Elizabeth, what's emerging and things, it can show me a lot more about people and a lot more about where we're at, and sort of just a side benefit of my sensing into what's emerging for people and how we're using language and how perhaps spiritual and mundane language sort of merge together at a certain point to where we can experience that. Being able to sense what's going on from a bigger perspective is really interesting. And my question is about the exercises that we may be doing together and what we may be learning. Is it something about sitting together and going back and forth, say with a dialogue, and say what I'm experiencing right now is, and then the other person says what I'm experiencing or what we're witnessing together or what we're experiencing together, sensing and things, is something about what we're doing, structuring language to something to trigger like our larger cooperation in a sense, or do we do these exercises to allow for a different language to emerge? Or maybe you could speak a little bit on what a beginner like me is experiencing and witnessing and coming up with, because I feel a little bit lost in this world to where you guys seem to have it together, and I'm a newcomer here, but it's also a tangible, like something I can grab onto and express and experience and share with people. So it's stimulating in a new way, and I just hope I can be open to it. So
maybe it would make sense to talk during the break, which we're about to go into, in order to bring you up to speed with what it is that we've done, if that would be useful. We're going to do an exercise after the break that is not what you had suggested, but is a little bit different than that. But I just also wanted to say that what you are capable of picking up in terms of voice is very, very essential to what it is that we're working with. Because we first did this work only using telephone, so that it had no visual cue at all. And in sometimes not having the visual cue, for those who are used to having it, allows for a depth of listening and attentiveness and capacity to intuit things at a deeper level. And that's probably an expertise that you have developed in your life. And bringing that to this, I think, is going to be very, very fruitful and very powerful.
Well, thank you, and I'd love it. I hope that what I say, and over time, I can sense whether what I'm saying is going to be beneficial for all of you and worthwhile for everyone. So I appreciate it, and I hope that our higher intention is going to be the thing, not so much Sam. You see, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Sam.
And
Thank you.
We also would like to move into the break now, also because it's part what is important is also to not overstretch the time online, because somebody talked in the chat about Zoom fatigue, and part of the Zoom fatigue is also that we have a sense of there is a time to start this, a time to be together, and there is also time to make a break, and to have a sense also for this. And this is an ongoing learning process that at least I ongoingly find out more things how to do this. I find to give this time, to give this rhythm, to give this breath is a big part of how to do this. But something that Sam was pointing to, I would like to also just point before we go into the break, because I think it speaks very much to the point. at least how we understand this work, to have a sensitivity for that what is emerging between us. Because I really think this is very much to the point, the way Sam expressed it. There's something in any kind of conversation that is emerging, has a quality of being birthed as we're talking. And it's nothing that I bring to this conversation. It's not my agenda that I bring. It's something that is coming through the engagement between us. And to be awake to that allows the conversation to come from a very different place. It needs a capacity for listening. And this is one of the really most fundamental strengths to learn here.
And so we're going to take a break until for 30 minutes. So we'll come back a little bit, or we'll come back 5 minutes after the hour for those of you who are not on India time, and the half hour for those of you who are in India. But during that time, to actually be curious about the more subtle dimensions of the space that you're in, or go outside if you can, if it's not dark, or raining or whatever, but and really pay attention not just to the surface of things, but to the energetic quality, to the smell of the rain, to the vibration of warmth and the vibration of light from the sun. What the feeling of life force in a tree or a plant. Make an encounter, have an encounter with your environment that is not just on the surface. And we'd recommend that you stay away from email or your screen during this half hour. But if you have to do what you need to do, you decide. But if you can be in nature a little bit, have a sense of this depth that we're exploring, bring it outside, bring it into relationship with your environment, and see what happens there.
So thank you very much, and we see you 5 minutes past the hour, and 5 minutes past half in India time.
Okay, and just before we leave, Sophia, that's a very
Welcome back. I invite you to again just arrive in this shared space here. As we said in the first part of this session, these online meetings are very much held by our intention and our consciousness. And this is part of the reason why we usually invite people in the beginning of these sessions to just take a minute or so to arrive here. To arrive here means...
No audio. No audio.
You cannot hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, good. All right.
I can hear you.
Good, thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you. My fault.
Okay.
My error.
Okay, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Good.
Susan, you want to mute yourself, please?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Because it's important to be aware of this space, particularly because this space is not physical, and it's such a fine and fragile space that we share, that it needs a lot of intention to hold it together. It's much easier for it to fragment, to fall apart, so that we have our awareness more on my particular relationship to this, or what I think about it. And this is all things that are valid and important, but an awareness of, let's wait a moment, I'm together with people here. Let's look. Let's just look, I'm together with people here. That allows us to give us a certain sensitivity and intuition for this space. And it needs this intuition and the sensitivity for this space to hold it together. Because like any relational space, it is a co-creative space that is held through us holding it. And because we are not as obvious together as we would be when we're sitting in the same physical space, it's very much dependent on our intention to arrive. That's why this reminder is something that we do very often, to remind the being, let's arrive here.
And here being in a space with all of you, with all of us all at once. That's the space that we're in. And to hold that space, we open our awareness in a kind of surround way, and embrace this context that we're in, that we see on screen, that actually is about 100 people on different places networked on this globe. So there's a simultaneous reality that we're holding. We're bringing our full presence, our full embodied presence, to engage and to hold this whole that we can't grasp and hang on to with our mind, but we can intuit the wholeness of it. That's part of what touches us.
When we do our year trainings, we quite often say to the participants, this is more than anything else an awareness training. It is an awareness training of this intersubjective space between us. And when you are facilitating online meetings, the capacity that helps you most on the consciousness part of this, I'm not talking about the technological mastering Zoom, that's also important too, but on the consciousness part, the most important capacity that you can develop is your own awareness of this space. Because only to the degree that you are aware of this space as such, you are able to invite people to this space. So that's also why we start this mini course with this awareness training and this sensitivity training and presence training, because this is the foundation in order to invite people to this specific online gathering and online consciousness space. And it's dependent on our capacity to be aware of it, that we can really facilitate this.
What's interesting is that when we speak about being aware of the space, we have a tendency that is schooled in particularly in Western culture of objectifying, of putting that space somewhere out there.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm inviting you to that space over there. But the space that we're speaking about is consciousness, and that means it is of me. It is not separate from me. So the space that one is inviting one to is is an opening, an invitation that is actually inviting people into something very intimate with oneself. That is the essence of presence, or essence, you could call it also. That the invitation comes from one's embracing the whole of what one can perceive as evident on screen, from the inside, not as an observer looking at. And I think that this is part of why there's also a very interesting potential in this process, because if you look at the consciousness that has made the world that we're all trying to change, the consciousness that made that is a consciousness that objectifies and categorizes everything. It says, this is not me, this is the other. And for this space to come alive, and for us to become, for it to become awake between us, what is asked for is that we bring forward this opening in ourselves to meet that in the whole, and that non-separate, friendly, connected, interconnected, already connected space is then what can become available to us, can open up in a meeting like this.
There's another exercise that we would like to invite you to. And it will be, again, an exercise in a small group, but it will be an exercise in a group of 4
or 5.
4 or 5. And we would like to distinguish between a certain way of being present and a different way of being present. And we call one the me space and the other the we space. And the me space are something that we have developed over thousands of years. It's our individuation process, and it's a very powerful thing. We don't experience each other just being part of a tribe or part of a tradition or part of a family. We have a very strong sense of our individuated self, and this is not just a negative thing. This is a very powerful thing, and it's something important maybe to talk about it. But it also leans to experiencing reality always in a self-referential way to what does this mean for me? Is this something that relates to how do I look like? What do I want? Do others like me? There's a lot of self-reference in that. The we space is of a different dimension.
I was going to say that me space can be like, what do I think about it? What do I have to offer here? How not simply how do I show up for other people, but even what can I as an individual give? And I think that what we're talking about is making is what's the difference between that space that is very deeply familiar to us and what we call a we space, which is an openness. It is openness to what is happening between us. The we space, the difference between the me space, which is my own self-referencing, my own assessment, and an opening to what is possible between us.
And what we would like to invite you in the small groups is exercise that is kind of an embodied exercise. So what we would like to, you will come in the small groups of 4 or 5 people, and we would like to sit upright and not lean back. And first, without talking, to go into what we just call this me space, which basically is an invitation to just be aware, how am I here right now? How does this relate to me? How am I with this? And how do I feel my presence in this space with these others? And just to experiment, this is me, wherever you are, Thomas, Lisbeth, Diana, Susan, me. This experience really, this is how I am with this. And then we would invite you to use your body just as a reference point and lean your body a little forward so that you're slightly out of balance in a forward position, leaning into the space between you and experience into this we space. And as you do this with your body and with your body senses, we would invite you to just also change the perspective and your inner awareness. So how does this situation between the 4 or 5 of you look like from this perspective of the we? How does this we space feel like? Not in the reference to me, but the we for itself. Just experience it. This is how the we space feels like, senses like. And just experience the difference maybe. And then we would invite you to lean back again into this me space and say, oh, this is how it looks like from the me perspective. And then we would like you to go back and forth in your own time and just see how this is how it looks from the me perspective. This is how it looks and feels like from the we perspective. And just go back and forth so that you can experience and are aware of how one and the other looks.
And in terms of looks, what Thomas is saying is not it's not a visual thing, but what is the sense experience? What is the total experience? What happens in one's mind when one moves back and one moves forward in the small group? What are the different? What's the different sensing that happens? What is the nature of the difference? That's what we're asking you to explore within yourself. And I just want to say also, just in terms of the construct of this session, so we started with a one-on-one, which is the easiest. Now we keep referring to the whole, which is everyone together on screen, and the presence that begins to become palpable in a larger collective. Now we're going in between. We're going to go into smaller groups that allow you to experiment with being able to expand yourself beyond just a one-on-one, so that we're building our capacity to sense and to be present in a larger than one-on-one way. So that's part of what we're working.
Because our objective for this first part of the course is really to kind of look into the capacity how we as facilitators can hold space. Because our capacity to be aware of this space, to hold the space, to invite for this space, makes the difference that we can create a presence for the whole group.
Yeah, and again, the space is not outside of oneself, it is within and through us. It is the whole that we are beholden to and open ourselves to as an invitation. Okay.
So we will open now the breakout rooms again. First, I would invite you to lean back. Then via chat, we will let you know to lean forward. And via chat, we will invite you again to lean back. And then via chat again, we will invite you to experiment in your own time, back and forth and back and forth. And we'll have some time for this. And then we will invite you again by chat to exchange between the 4 or 5 so that you can exchange your experience, and then we will come back to the big group.
Okay.
Welcome back. And yeah, we would like to hear from you about the difference or not difference of this experience. What we would like to highlight is what we spoke about in the time before for the group, that there is something between us that has a wholeness of we that we can be aware of. Some people, like Thich Nhat Hanh, call it also the interbeing. And to be aware of this allows us to hold the space between us in a different way. And we're just curious what your experience is with this. And Steve, you raised your hand.
Yeah, I was very struck after the silent period. I was just very struck by a very strong desire to know where the other people were on the earth. And when they said that where they were, it's like the we space kind of became much more vivid for me.
Interesting.
The we space became much more vivid, but did also a sense of span become more vivid?
It just became more intimate, really. Like it was a very small amount of information to know about the people.
Yeah.
But it was enough to make the connection much more intimate, and to kind of felt like it brought us together, sharing that information about each other. But also I think there's something about it really isn't virtual. It really is real.
Right.
We really are all on these different places on the earth right now.
No, thank you for making this point. It's really important to me. We are not virtual right now, although we are connected via the screen and pixel. But Steve, you're really where you are, and you're really hearing me, and I'm really hearing you, and it's real.
Not fake news.
Yeah. Thank you.
Margot?
Yeah, thank you. It was lovely to do this. And I was very struck by, as soon as I went into the we space, the leaning forward, the sense of aliveness and presence and excitement. It was like anything was possible. Maybe I could say something, or someone else would do something. This sense of possibilities. So that was, it was just very surprised and very happy to notice that. It's very exciting. Thank you.
No, thank you so much, Marco, for saying this, because in some of the comments are also questions about the Zoom fatigue or the screen fatigue. And our experience is, as soon as this aliveness becomes alive between us, usually the fatigue goes.
Yeah, it's like forget what fatigue.
What fatigue? There's something really coming alive that is human aliveness. That's also why we call this online aliveness. It's not that you can spend hours and hours and hours on screen. There's a limit to it. But a lot of this screen fatigueness is because of disconnection.
In a fundamental way.
And as soon as the energy starts to flow between us, and we are working the we space because we are aware of it, very often just the fatigueness goes, and there's something exactly as you're describing it. And this is, I think, a big part how we really can contribute to a powerful living we space when we work this.
And I happen to see two people who are in our global Higher We program, where we cultivate this capacity, who we're really happy that you said that, because I think that's their experience.
If I may,
Dorian.
I found a remarkable experience. I really did. And I think for me, the most vivid thing was the fact, the way that my heart just swelled. I could really feel the other people, you know, and it was as we bonded to such an extent that my breathing slowed and deepened, my heart space expanded. And yes, even go back, and I think it was this amazing feeling of being totally accepted. So even when I leant back into the me space, it was okay. Nobody, it was absolutely acceptable for me to do that and come back and be in the joint space. And that was really absolutely wonderful. So, and of course, immediately, because of just, honestly, there's obviously a limited number of people on your screen, and then I'd have to toggle. I'm thought, where are they now? Where are they?
Right.
My breakaway roommates are not on this particular screen, and I'm missing them.
One shot, you will see them again in a couple
Yes,
of
I
minutes.
will. Thank you.
But it's I mean, that's also a very important point. I mean, there are the original tribes had a pre-individuated sense of being we, but we're not those people. So the we actually does hold the me. I mean, one can be radically disconnected, as we are in this culture generally, or that our culture is built on separation. But in this, the truth of this deeper connection that is real, we discover that the we actually brings out the best of the me.
And also, if I just may respond to Doreen, there's something about what you said about the heart, of the experience of the heart. This is so important to really recognize. As I think I said again and again, this is an embodied experience if we allow it to be an embodied experience. And we can be in these different places around the globe, but there's a connection that is a cellular connection. It's not just a mental thing that I am aware of you, Doreen, where you are, that there's something that really holds all dimensions of my humanness when I allow this relationship to open up. And we can do that. We can learn how to do this in an online setting, and we can find ways of being together in this way. And there's a lot of potential in this.
And also, it's like everyone knows and maybe has had beautiful, incredible experiences of the truth that love is the fabric of life.
Absolutely.
And part of what happens in this amazing, I mean, this kind of, in this setting, online in this way, is that truth becomes more evident. That heart expansion is the field. The field is you could say care, is love, is heart, and that's a very it seems so counter to what one would have ever thought, that this can come alive in this way, and that this is a deeper truth that most of us have pierced into or looked at in our deepest moments. But maybe we've got a lot of hands up. Manon, you're up.
Yeah.
We have people in the order
Thank you.
of raise.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. Well, you said it all, but in our group, the experience was what stayed with me was this openness in the we space and the contraction in the me. The contraction doesn't need to be negative in that sense, but it was definitely, the attention was just moving a bit everywhere in the thoughts, and somewhere in the past, somewhere in the future. It was really traveling a lot. And in the we space, there was this intimacy that was really inviting, that was really I was immersed, I was taking in, so to speak. And with more and more that we were switching from me to we, the definition of me and we just completely disappeared. And there was just a movement of inwardly, outwardly, but definitely that this openness was where I could see the me emerging from. So that became very, very concrete. So more and more that we were practicing in and out, if we can say it that way.
Thank you.
Great. Artie Roots Ross.
So that was lovely. I'm so glad to have had that particular experience as someone who had been facilitating some things online, and I also work one-on-one with people in my normal life, whatever, I do a lot of one-on-one work and facilitate groups, but I've been struggling with the sense of disconnection while I'm paying attention to all the technology, as you alluded to earlier, and to have this experience in this small group of viscerally knowing that there's no separation. Like, I know that, but to actually sit with these others, both with the one-on-one and with the group, but particularly with the group because, I guess I just haven't had a chance to settle into that lack of separation and, just automatic compassion and connection. It didn't really matter whether I was from sitting back or forward. I immediately felt, like I had my arms like this or something, like just like that we were completely together. And I know that in the core of my being to be true. But much like when I did a practice distance healing session before I started, because I wasn't doing that before because I put my hands on people in general. And as soon as I did it, I don't know why I was surprised. Like, it was like miraculous how well it works. So it was a similar thing, like, wow, it's miraculous. It's really not different from sitting in a, if you were all sitting in my living room or,
This, as you're saying, it's one thing to know that, and it's another thing to again experience it.
Right.
And also the wildness, just kind of mind-bogglingness that this technology is making that experience possible, and may then make it much more of just the fabric of our lives, just like we know we're an individual, that this would be lived between us.
And so grateful to be able to bring that back to the groups I'm working with. Like, it seems to be happening in the yoga class I teach because people are in movement. It's a little different, but the more that sitting in circle groups, it's, that I don't feel like we've quite dropped in. And now we're going to do something similar to this because that it's just to get us all on the same page. So thank you very much.
Because there's really a moment, and you described it, where I couldn't care less that we are connected via the computer. The point is we are connected.
Yeah.
That's the point. And this is a computer that helps us, fine. But
great.
But I really don't care about the computer. I care about that there's a human being and I feel the connection and it's real.
Yeah. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Gabriele Ulla.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for this opportunity. Hello from the North Woods of Wisconsin. I'm.
Oh, right. I thought it would be Germany somewhere.
Ja, eigentlich bin ich von Deutschland, aber ich bin
right.
Noch nichts. I was so taken with the difference between the me space and the we space in this way. It required investment of my will. We're so trained by the television to have a fluid kind of attention to the screen. Now I'm interested, now I'm not, moving back and forth. But this donation of my direct attention to what is behind the screen, to this other person, to this live being or these beings on the other side, it requires an investment of energy. Of course, the payback is fabulous. You have this sense of aliveness, but it really, you have to up the will to do it. And it requires a kind of a discipline of attention and focus and concentration. And then the expansion. So then the concentration and then the expansion.
Right. I mean, if you have a meditation practice, you know that there's the focus and then there's the open. But I want to be able to hear from more Diana Spiegel. Thank you so much, Gabriella. I couldn't have said it better.
I became so aware in this last session of the miracle, just the basic miracle of knowing that these two things exist, you know, and not just on Zoom, but to be able to go through life and know at the very foundational level that, and the awareness that I'm in the me or the we, or what the experiences that I'm having. And so I was very touched by that.
Yeah, great. Thank you, Diana. Alison Churchill. Alison, are you still here? Well, let's
just unmute Alison in case.
Are you trying to speak?
Alison, are you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Hello.
Here you are. Great. I muted you while you unmuted you, so we did a double thing.
Yeah, I think people have said very eloquently what I was going to say, but a sense of that exchange of energy that when we were in the me space, it was a sense of 2D-ness, and then forward there was an exchange of energy. There was something energetic that opened up the heart.
Right.
And when we went back, there's lots of different things that arose, but it was like I had the sense of when we went back, it was a kind of, there was still that sense of the aliveness of the people, but it was almost like saying farewell and then returning. It was almost like seeing a photograph. You've known someone so well, then you see their photograph. It's like the sadness of that staticness of the photograph, and then to kind of dive in again. But yeah, it was lovely, just lovely to play with all of that. Yeah,
great. Ananda Kali. Where are we?
Yay, thank you. Still feeling the exercise, really like it was so strong in my chest and throat and everything. So what rises for me from this experience and from previous ones is that I tend to easily, and I guess that many others too, to underestimate the intensity of the presence. That it's like, okay, compared to the amount of the exercise just here, compared to the effect it had. The effect is much bigger than as if we would have probably, I never done this live, but how I would imagine it. The physical, it's like an invasion of energy. It's not positive or negative, but it's strong, and that's the like.
I agree. I agree. Thank you.
Can I continue with another point?
No, it's sure.
Yeah, the other, what I discovered there was that when we weren't all there in the we space and we were fluctuating in different rhythms, it felt unsafe.
Where did you feel safe?
When we were all in the we space. It was a total like forgetting about what are they thinking about me and that kind of thing.
Makes sense.
But then, yes, it felt vulnerable to be there so that not everybody is there. Maybe it's to do with how I know how judgmental I can be in my me state. So then I assume that everybody else are being like judging in their when they're in their me space, but I'm putting myself in the we space in a vulnerable state.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now we've now come to the end of our session time, and I know there's still hands. People still wanted to contribute. Perhaps we will leave the space open for whoever wants to continue. You want to go back into the groups, but then the people. Oh, okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, then we'll go back into. I'll tell you how it works. We'll go back into the small groups again. And if you want to stay and engage, and if you have questions about your experience, maybe it's something to open up with together. And if you don't find yourself in a group, just come back to the main room, and those who are left there can also continue talking. No one has to do this, but it's just to keep. If you feel it's like at the end of a conference, people don't just vanish. You hang out a little bit, and if you'd like to hang out with people, we'll put you back in the small groups. But
why do you need to break up into breakout rooms? Why can't we just all stay in one group?
Yeah.
Why can't we just all stay in one group?
Just because it's easier to talk in small groups, as after conference, it's easier. It's just natural to have small groups talking. That's why we you have this setup, and would suggest to do so. That's the idea behind
Okay,
it.
that actually reminds me of another question that I had. Do you choose who gets matched up with who?
No,
in the small
it's all random.
It's all random. That's part of the
Okay.
fun of it. That it's really a random meeting, and basically the idea is we finished now the official session. We bring you back in the groups. You can hang if you have to leave. If you want to hang out together for 2 minutes, that's great. If you want to hang out for 20 minutes or half an hour, that's fantastic too. It's completely up to you. If you want to come back in the main room, come back in the main room and stay as long as you want. Or if you want to have to leave right now, you also can leave right now. As you would do in a physical gathering, you just leave when you have to leave. And when you hang out a little bit, you can hang out a little bit.
Bruce, I want to hear what you have to say. He's been trying to talk for